Well, the news has just come in that Nikon has purchased Red, and the memes are rolling in. Yes, it's true. Everyone that shoots on Red is now officially a Nikon shooter. For better or for worse, I am very much enjoying the internet exploding with questions about how this acquisition is going to play through in the long term. But before we get into that, let's cover the news. So Nikon, one of the oldest camera brands around, has purchased Red Digital Cinema, one of the premier cinema camera manufacturers. Red as a company was founded in 2005 and made big steps in the cinema market with the launch of its original Red 1 camera. Since then, Red cameras have been gracing many film sets, and a number of years ago, they were the cinema camera of choice for a lot of productions. They've kind of fallen a bit out of favor in recent years, but they're still highly acclaimed and create beautiful images. Red is also famous for their innovation in camera sensor technology when they created a sensor that could digitally record in 4K and higher resolutions in RAW format that is also compressed. This compressed RAW on video cameras was a vital feature and still is, which means all the extra information when you're shooting RAW gets saved, but in a way that doesn't immediately fill up storage or bog down editing machines. Their RAW footage was and still is a highly flexible camera codec that allows editors a greater latitude of adjustments in post. It's very desirable, and of course Red patented that, and a lot of other companies were not happy about that. Many camera companies had to kind of cripple or kneecap their cameras in a way that would walk around Red's patent. One of those examples was the DJI Ronin 4D, which had to remove Apple ProRes RAW from the camera and replace it with ProRes 444XQ because, of course, Red had a patent for internal RAW recording. And how did Apple have ProRes RAW? Well, like a suite of other camera companies, Apple signed an agreement with Red in order to use that special technology. Now, some companies like Arri and Blackmagic have gotten around this with prior innovations that have allowed them to shoot high-quality RAW recorded footage, while other companies like Sony and Canon have had to kind of work around it and develop their own systems for recording ProRes RAW and RAW-like footage. And then came Nikon a number of years ago. Now, they weren't content with paying the royalties to Red that some of the other cameras had for their internal RAW, but they still wanted it as part of their camera technology. So Nikon very publicly started questioning Red's authority on their patents, wondering if they could actually patent that type of technology. And it got so far that Red sued Nikon for their update on the Z9 camera that included internal RAW recording. The Red lawsuit against Nikon for their video compression patent was dismissed by a court. Nikon's NRAW format was, according to Red, an infringement on their patent, and there was some bad blood between the companies that saw them make headlines multiple times before the case was dismissed. The lawsuit never made it to a jury trial, so essentially there was no winner and no loser, and it was a bit suspicious because when the lawsuit ended, it came out that both Red and Nikon filed to dismiss the lawsuit, making us all wonder why it was brought up in the first place. There were some speculations that Nikon and Red settled out of court, or that Red and Nikon had no interest in pursuing a financially heavy lawsuit against both these camera brands. These are very big camera brands in the space. So the speculation was on as to why these companies seemed to not like each other, and then all of a sudden they were all good with each other, and now I think we know the answer. But let's touch on Nikon really quickly. So Nikon, of course, is much older than Red. Nikon was founded in 1917 in Tokyo, Japan, and they're actually 20 years older than Canon. Nikon has consistently been one of the largest optical technology companies in the world, and of course, people know them for their cameras. When Nikon released the Z9, they included an update that added internal RAW recording and expressed that internal RAW would be part of their portfolio in coming cameras. So here we are today. The Nikon Corporation has announced that it has agreed to acquire 100% of the outstanding membership interests of Red. Red will now be a wholly owned subsidiary of Nikon. The agreement says that they will still exist as Red Digital Cinema, but they will just be under the umbrella of Nikon. The press release itself does not tiptoe around the fact that this is a massive decision to merge two substantial camera brands in the space. Quote, in a landmark move, Red Digital Cinema is excited to announce it will be acquired by the Nikon Corporation. The agreement with Nikon, reached with Red's founder Jim Gennard and president Gerard Land, signifies a new era of innovation and excellence in the professional filmmaking sector. And I can't help but speculate. I mean, Nikon was questioning Red's patents, and they went forward with an update that Red said was infringing on their patent for internal RAW. And when the two went to court, I can't help but think that Nikon attorneys or accountants or both said, hey, maybe instead of fighting these legal bills with Red, maybe it's just better to buy the entire company. So Nikon dropped the lawsuit, and well, it looks like they purchased Red. And that kind of opens the door to what is next for this partnership. Both brands, I imagine, will act independently of themselves in the foreseeable future. They both have a solid reputation in the filmmaking community. Nikon with some of their mirrorless camera products that are quite good for budget video, and Red, of course, in the medium range in the cinema space, going all the way up to large, big budget movies with their cinema cameras. But as a division of Nikon, what types of partnerships will we see between these two companies? Will we see a partnership product similar to how Zeiss partners with Sony in the creation of their lenses, or how Hasselblad is on DJI, kind of like a powered by Red type of situation? What about the flip side? Will we see a Red camera that can now take pictures, kind of like that smartphone they abandoned a number of years ago? Not like that, but like a photo camera from Red? I think one of the likely scenarios is that we may see a cinema line or a more video focused line from Nikon that could be powered by Red Tech or affiliated with Red Tech in some way. It is hard to say what the future holds. Another consideration is how will the companies now act with their external partners. So Nikon now owns Red, and Red builds cinema cameras that use Canon mounts. I can imagine there's a big incentive to transition Red cameras to Z mounts now that the company owns Red. As well, we talked about all the partnerships that Red had made with companies like Apple to use their raw video recording format. Those partnerships now belong to Nikon. So Nikon is receiving a substantial portion of the video and cinema business just through this acquisition alone. Now, do I think change is going to happen overnight? No. I think these are massive companies and for the most part relatively slow moving given the amount of technology and research that goes into the launch of new products. I can't imagine anything's going to happen substantially in the short term. However, Nikon has made a play to take up more of this market share, and this acquisition means that Nikon cameras will likely have some sort of competitive advantage stemming from Red technology in the future. And can you imagine Red's awesome sensor technology paired with the crazy advancements in Nikon glass? Just close your eyes and envision a knocked cinema line. Okay, now I'm getting ahead of myself. I do have to say that I'm excited about the prospect of Nikon becoming more serious in the pro video space. That was always kind of like, in terms of the big camera brands, Canon and Nikon would exchange punches in photography, but it always seems like with the Canon C line that Canon had the upper hand on pro video. And, prior to the Z line and Nikon, there wasn't really a lot of options if you wanted to maintain F mount or Z and still shoot video. So the prospect of them getting their own line with N-Log and internal RAW recording could make for a change in the dynamic of the pro video landscape that right now is mostly dominated kind of in the mid to low end by Canon and Sony, and then in the upper end by bigger companies like Arri. I certainly think they have the power and the technology and the funds in between both companies. Red has been hot off the announcement of a few new cameras that people have been genuinely excited for, and I personally think that Nikon's progress in their mirrorless mount and the cameras that they're releasing are also something to be really excited for. Not only if you already have Nikon lenses, but even if you're looking from the outside and maybe getting into a Nikon system. I think Nikon's in a really good spot right now, and the fact that they could afford to buy Red and they have a vision for the future, I think bodes well for the relationship and the future of both companies. But what do you think about Nikon acquiring Red Digital Cinema? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. Thank you very much for watching this video. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next video.